Good afternoon, welcome to the UK Column News. It is the 24th of September 2014. It's just gone 1 o'clock. Myself, Louise Collins, Brian Gerrish and Nick are here in the studio. Mike's away working on the paper. Afternoon, it's really hot in here again.
Always, because it's hot and sunny outside in Plymouth, and we're getting reports that actually most of the weather across the country appears to be good. So if you're somewhere where it isn't good, we're going to say we'll think of you. Well, we're going to open on the topic of Melanie Shaw. It's our belief that this case is so significant because it shows what the British state is really about, what David Cameron is about, the Miliband brothers, Nick Clegg. None of these men care about what is happening to children in UK. They are very happy to carry on their warmongering. Melanie Shaw, victim, is into her 61st day today. Now, we can tell you that yesterday Melanie was in court in both the morning and then it adjourned to a court hearing, a follow-up hearing in the afternoon. The first thing Melanie knew about the fact she was going to be in court was when she was woken up at 6 o'clock in the morning yesterday and told, you better get your stuff together because at 6:30 the wagon's leaving for the court. So Melanie had been represented by a law firm called VHS Fletchers. It would appear that Melanie was totally unaware that she was going to be dragged into court. In the court hearing, we know that VHS Fletchers was sacked. Melanie has said in writing and verbally over many days that she had sacked VHS Fletchers because she believed that they hadn't progressed her bail application properly. She was also extremely concerned that information in her legal notes appeared to have been deleted, and altogether she felt that the firm had not acted in her best interests. So VHS Fletchers are out. We understand that means that legal aid is now available for another company. We're waiting to see where that leads. But for a short period in court, Melanie Shaw was able to act as a litigant in person. There was discussion with the judge about where the case would go. And it now appears that there'll be a further case hearing on the 13th of October. And Melanie should face a full trial, which should be interesting since there still is no evidence. The trial date that's been set is October the 23rd. So here we have this very, very brave lady, suffered immensely child abuse within her own family and later under the so-called care of Nottinghamshire Children's Services Beechwood Home. She is the whistleblower that led to Operation Daybreak, where we now know that some 100 children minimum were abused within the Beechwood system. And of course, a significant number of those children died either via suicides or the fact that witnesses, including Melanie, are saying, no, some of these children were murdered on that site. Now, the other thing which has made Melanie so dangerous to the authorities is that she holds evidence that Nottinghamshire police have already lied over the conduct of their work in Operation Daybreak. I believe this incident relates to the interview of other witnesses, and it's now appears to be a fact that Nottinghamshire police simply not doing their job. So here we've got echoes of Holly Gregg. Grampian police didn't bother to investigate Holly Gregg's accusations of abuse, so hey presto, there's no crime. And here we've got Nottinghamshire police doing exactly the same trick, except Melanie Shaw, highly intelligent lady, fantastic memory on all matters, particularly places, faces, dates, names, car registration numbers. Only way to shut her up is to put her in prison, and at the moment with no evidence.
Can I just say that yesterday's court hearing, somebody in our little Facebook group said that they got to the court and they weren't allowed in the room. The doors were locked. It wasn't. I thought it was a public hearing because somebody in the chat room just said, "Was it a secret court?" But it wasn't a secret court, was it? But I know people who turned up there yesterday said they couldn't get in when they got there back in the afternoon because it was adjourned in the morning, I believe, and it was reopened in the afternoon. And when they got there, the doors were closed and they weren't allowed in.
Well, we'd say on air, if you were the person who attended court and couldn't get in the afternoon, would you please make contact with us? You can call us on the Plymouth number 01752 478 050. We would be particularly interested because the case was announced the day before by a tweet from VHS Fletcher's. It was then listed on the Nottinghamshire court listings as a full public hearing with the defendant Melanie Shaw to attend. And we would be extremely interested to know if, in fact, the public were then banned from that hearing.
I think it was the Get Out of Debt Free boys who turned up there, actually. So, I mean, anyone can get in touch with them, or if not, I'll get in touch with them.
But this is a very important point. Normally, court should be giving 7 days' notice of public hearings, but it appears that where Melanie Shaw is concerned, then 1 minute the court is public, the next minute it's been closed by the judge and members of the public present thrown out the court. Yesterday was a mentions hearing. We're still waiting to discover exactly what that is. It appears that it's a low-level directions hearing, almost like a little chat in chambers, but in fact this was held in a court with Melanie present. So we are as confused as the rest of the public. Obviously what's going on is justice on the hoof. Has Melanie murdered somebody? Is she a serious criminal? No, this is a lady that has been gutsy enough to whistleblow on child abuse. I'm just going to say it is obvious what is going on. The British state at the highest level covering up massive child abuse, which is running through the key institutions. It's running through social services, it's running through the local authorities, and of course the police and members of Parliament are involved as the abusers, hence the clampdown on Melanie Shaw.
It was Mickey Summers. Mickey Summers and one of the Get Out of Debt Free boys was shut out of court yesterday. Okay,
well,
so
we'll speak to Mickey. Thank you for contacting us on that. But there we are, Melanie Shaw. We just once again recap the fact that she knows about her own abuse, the abuse and likely murder. There was circa 100 children abused altogether, some of those murdered. The failure of Nottinghamshire Police to properly investigate under Operation Daybreak. And she's now in a vicious captivity in HM Prison Peterborough. And we can tell you that, again, Melanie has been denied proper medication. The good news is that she has decided to abandon her hunger strike. We are exceptionally pleased with this because Melanie has enough health issues without adding the fact she's not getting the proper nutrients. So Melanie Shaw has told individuals this morning that she's off hunger strike. The other good news is we believe another application for bail should be going in about 1 week's time. So we'll keep you posted on that. And Louise, I'm sure will be saying, have a look at the Facebook site.
I will.
Yep,
here it is. Also, one of the ladies, Wendy, thank you very much for this. The silent vigil is going to be held outside Peterborough Prison on Sunday, the 5th of October. More details to come. There is an event page set up for people who can attend on our UK Column official Melanie Shaw group. And more details will follow. And I'm going to be speaking to Alex G. So hopefully Alex G can assist there in some way about getting the word out across.
And if you're sitting there wondering what to do, anything and everything you can do will assist. In particular, we are interested in Britain's MPs who simply hide behind the statement that they can't get involved with the constituents of other MPs. So it doesn't matter what's going on in the country, rape, murder of children. It's not in my constituency.
Yeah.
I'm afraid I can't get involved in this. This is utter madness. Of course, it's a lie. It's a gentleman's agreement, if there are any gentlemen in Parliament, which I don't believe there are. It's a gentleman's agreement to say we don't normally tread on the toes of our fellow MPs. This attitude's got to be broken apart because at the moment, Britain's MPs in Westminster are clearly condoning the rape and sexual abuse and murder of British children by the fact they will not act in their defence. So get writing, emailing, and can I encourage people to perhaps break into David Cameron's 743,000 Twitter followers to get your comment right in front of David Cameron's face, a man who we'll be moving on to in a minute because he's more concerned with killing yet more people overseas than saving British children.
Yeah, exactly. Can we just say, somebody's asking, can you send vitamins to Melanie?
No.
Well, no, they're not getting to her. They're being thrown away. Manuka honey, as Snake Diets just pointed out, got thrown away. No.
The answer is no. So you have a private profit-making prison. Of course, the profit is going overseas. Sodexo is a private company operated from France, I believe I'm correct in saying. And you are not going to get materials in and assistance into Melanie Shaw. And an area that we're particularly investigating at the moment is Mr. Selou, who is the Minister for Prisons, refuses to say whether he still has jurisdiction over privately run prisons in UK. So we're going to be sticking on the case, but anybody who is capable of writing a polite, reasonable, but to the point email may care to get in contact with Mr. Selou. It's got an S on the end, but I'm told it's pronounced Selou, S-E-L-O-U-S, and ask him, does he still have responsibility for those incarcerated in private profit-making prisons in UK? Apparently, he's getting a little bit worried about these questions. Somebody said it's like seeing a CIA interrogation centre in Poland. Well, it's worse than that because, of course, this is not in Poland or anywhere else. We are talking about the treatment of human beings inside prisons in UK under the full spotlight of our Westminster politicians.
Disgraceful.
Well, here he is, of course.
Okay, apparently, according to David Cameron, it was Sky News actually picked him up talking to somebody at an event last night where he said when he spoke to the Queen, she purred down the phone at the news of the Novo. And
that was approval.
Purred with approval.
Yeah.
Apparently she said it shouldn't have been that close. And Cameron has now had to go with his tail between his legs and apologise for his inappropriate comments with regards to Her Majesty.
I believe you told us yesterday he didn't have a tail.
I don't think he's got anything.
Okay. Well, we just bring this up again because let's have a think about what's going on here. Of course, the ramping up for the vote on independence took place over a long period of time. And then we're led to believe it was only in the last 2 weeks that suddenly David Cameron and members of the of Westminster started to speak out, and then the Queen got involved. She doesn't say anything. She doesn't make any public statements. She doesn't put her opinion out. This is because she doesn't have any power anymore. She's given it away to the EU and the Privy Council. And then at the last minute, well, actually, I'm quite pleased that my kingdom has not been split up. So this has got to be just dross in the media for us. And the reality is, of course, that we now have a cabal running the country. We are aware that there's been some criticism from north of the border to our comments over independence. Just so there's no misunderstanding, we have actually been focusing on the role of Alex Salmond in calling for independence for Scotland. And our key point is that, one, Mr. Salmond has not been telling the truth to the Scottish people because he can't give independence. He can only give independence for Scotland as a vassal state of the EU. We've also pointed out, of course, that Alex Salmond's personal office mysteriously lost or destroyed documents relating to child abuse up in Scotland. And we'd also point out that this is the same SNP regime which is suppressing calls for an investigation into child abuse in Scotland. So we think that what's actually going on in Scotland at the moment is that more or less we've got a group, a junta, the same as operating in Westminster, want to break up the union. Why do you want to break up the union? It's the same as breaking up a family. If you break the family apart, then the individuals in that family are much weaker on their own and can be picked off by the state. So on one hand, we can say, fully understand why many Scots would want to break away from this corrupt, vicious Westminster government. On the other hand, if we look at the bigger picture, we know that there's a hidden hand that wants to divide the nations on this isle, these isles against each other, so that they can bring in the full police state agenda. Hope that clarifies it a bit, but I will add that UK Column is going to continue to push out what we believe is the real picture.
Thanks,
well,
Brian.
Sorry, I'm being a bit passionate today. It's the shirt. Here he is. Let's give him a mention. So here's Alex, and of course, what is he doing now? Well, there was a vote, but of course, we shouldn't trust the vote because it was interfered with by the other side. He should live in Ireland, really, because it's a bit like the Irish referendum.
No, we're going to upset the Irish now.
No, well, come on, let's we're not involved with political correctness. What happened in Ireland, of course, they didn't get the right result
and they were offered
first. So let's have another go. So what is Mr. Salmon up to? I don't know, but I don't trust a man who loses or destroys documents which would open the doors to child abuse and dealing with that child abuse. It's extraordinary, isn't it? Well, this is
very nice.
Part of the getting in a little bit deeper, because one of the papers had an article. Can I just come back here and see whether it was actually this one? Sorry, I've missed this off this slide. If you have a look at the text under Mr. Salmon, I'll read it. It says, a new website has threatened civil disobedience, saying Scotland was cheated by the result. And then there's this very interesting statement. An anonymous group calling itself Butterfly Rebellion warned MSPs by means of a non-violent resistance and passive civil disobedience, we will ensure that our nation becomes impossible for your masters in Westminster to govern. So here we've got the Express, major national newspaper, suddenly giving air to the views of an anonymous group called the Butterfly Rebellion. Well, we thought we'd go on the hunt for those butterflies, and this is where it led us. So here's Our Kingdom, and I couldn't help but remember the UK Column News last Friday when Mike homed in on the fact that David Cameron was consistently using the word our when he was talking about all things to do with the United Kingdom. It was our kingdom, our nation, our society. And here we have Our Kingdom. I'm going to say for those interested, I believe this is with the Illuminati butterfly. Here's the Butterfly Rebellion. And it says the British state has sent its big guns to Scotland and found them overwhelmed by a movement of 1,000 butterflies. Now, this is very significant language because this ties in with community activists. Yep. 1,000 points of light, and I think there's a message being given here. So let's have a look at who's involved with our kingdom and also open democracy. And here she is, Rosemary Belchler. Sorry, I'll apologise. I'm sure you don't. Belchler as opposed to Belchler. So she's Open Democracy editor. She chaired the National Peace Council and Peace Workers UK and edited the New Times, before joining Open Democracy in 2000. And then here's the clue, because here is the link into the British Council. Go on then. So who is actually running this? Well, I can tell you the moment you see Open Democracy, you should start looking for money from George Soros. So let's go into the British Council, and here they are. They say it's the UK's international organisation for educational opportunities and cultural relations. We're on the ground in 6 continents and over 100 countries, bringing international opportunity to life. Sounds good, doesn't it?
It's got to be Soros then.
Well, yeah, here they are. Here's their history. It was formed in 1934. Europe was in flux, and the British establishment's decision to spread and strengthen influence throughout the development of cultural relations was arguably ahead of its time. And they got a royal charter. So note, they don't even say it's the government, it's the British establishment. So,
it's telling you exactly what it is then, isn't it?
Who are we dealing with? And we thought we'd just go in that little bit further. And here he is, the chair of the British Council, Sir Vernon Ellis. And print's a little bit small. I'll read some of this out. It says, prior to early 2010, he spent all his working life at Accenture in a number of major operational roles, overseeing a period of extraordinary growth through the 1990s. He led the firm's operations in Europe, Middle East, Africa and India, and also developed Accenture's relationship with the World Economic Forum. From 2001, he was international chairman of Inter Alia and led the global corporate citizenship activities. So here we are. We've got a very powerful globalist. What's he involved in? He's involved with the World Economic Forum and all of those things. So the little mention of a group, Butterfly Rebellion, the average reader would think, oh, well, these are some local Scots people who've got fired up and they're not going to stand for the result. No. What's going on here is this is the likes of Soros, of course, the EU there in the background as well, putting its own people in now to start to really get the friction on the ground.
Just got to do a bit of digging.
So I hope that helps you. If you're north of the border and you're not sure how we are looking at what's going on, I'm going to say I hope the UK column's been doing its homework. Well, if in doubt or you've got problems at home, what's the best thing to do? Go and bomb somebody.
Yeah, it's always a plan.
Yeah, always a good thing. So here we are. The British Council says we need to get more British culture overseas, and David Cameron going flat out because he's promised. Let's get those airstrikes in on the jihadists.
We didn't get Syria the first time, so let's go in again.
Yeah, we've done. What did he say when MPs were touring his little house, number 10 or number 11, wherever it was? David Cameron was quoted in mainstream papers as sort of saying, well, I've already invaded Libya. We've done Libya. Where are we going to do next? And who are the jihadists? Who are these people? And you picked this one up.
Yeah, Parliament is to be recalled on Fridays, as it seems Cameron is going to get his way and begin airstrikes against Syria, even though he is using the US-UK-backed ISIS as the excuse. On Friday, Cameron is hoping to strengthen his case to get MPs' approval for the airstrikes against Syria. He continued that military action will be limited to Syria and Iraq at the moment. At the moment, a strong word.
So do we know that government's going to be recalled?
They are suspecting it, yes.
Yeah, so we can't...
They're putting it out there, so yes, it's going to be.
Okay, so this is the opportunity for people to get their views across. It was successfully done last time when the government planned to unleash an attack on Syria. How did people do it? They phoned their MPs, they wrote to them, they sent emails, and they tweeted simply saying, you make the wrong decision, you're not going to be an MP come the next election. So the power is in the hands of the people, and perhaps the British public can again show that David Cameron is not going to be let loose with these toys to kill and murder, maim people overseas. But this must be the real headline, of course. If you want war, and more war, then you need to vote for David, our King Cameron. So this is the man. He can't bring politicians back into Westminster to discuss abuse of thousands of children or the destruction of the NHS or the potholes in the road. But you want to spend money, then get David Cameron and his little sidekick Clegg, and they're going to tell you how they're going to kill more people overseas. And the papers, of course, absolutely glorying in this. No pictures of Melanie Shaw in the Telegraph, but boy, they want to get the pictures in of the Tomahawk cruise missiles getting on.
I'm going to get a sad one way or another, won't he?
We are the sad people because we put these people in power, but presumably now more of us understand what we voted into power. Actually, I didn't vote David Cameron in power, if anybody's worried. But, of course, over the years, many of us did vote. These are the people we've brought in. And I think you've been having a look at David Cameron.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind people, this is an old story, but I just wanted to remind people about David Cameron's family history. Well, Cameron's family home is in Scotland, Aberdeen, and it's called Blairmore. Could you believe it? Blairmore House. Ian Cameron is David Cameron's father, died in 2010, but before that he set up an offshore fund in Panama for tax reasons, Blairmore Holdings, which was established in 1982 and today is valued at over £25 million. Yep, here we go. There he is. There's King, Grandad, isn't he? I don't know, whatever, the father of King Cameron.
His father,
yeah. In Ian Cameron's notes about Blair Holdings, he explains it was set up to promote investors with steady, long-term capital growth over and above the global rate of inflation. So this has offices in Geneva, in Panama and other countries, and basically just another tax exile, really, isn't it? Another company set up for tax exile purposes.
Yeah, well, you're not allowed to call it tax evasion, it's tax avoidance, but what it basically means is that David Cameron doesn't really want to put money into the British economy. Well, he wouldn't, because he's declared his undying loyalty not to Britain, not to Scotland, not to Wales or Ireland. But of course, David Cameron says his undying loyalty is to Israel. So why put your money back in the country?
Just about this, he became, and also they are linked to Jersey as well, which obviously is also a tax haven, and horrible things go on in that island. So there's a close link to Jersey.
If you haven't seen Bill Maloney's film, Sun, Sea and Satan, thank you. I was going to put sex in there somewhere, but if you haven't seen that film yet, have a look. Bill Maloney, Pie and Mash Films, and just get a little taster of what he found going on in Jersey. Well, if we jump over the pond, as they say, it appears that Barack Obama has been getting in hot water, according to the Mirror, for a latte salute to Marines. And basically what was going on here was that he got off his famous helicopter with a cup of obviously a plastic cup of coffee in his hand. He couldn't be bothered to put it down in order to return the proper salute of the very smart American Marines. So he just sort of gave them a wave with his coffee. Now, people might not really pick up on this. Sorry, Nick, can you just keep that on screen for a second? I just want to add a bit. But if you think about it, those two American Marines would have made sure that they spent hours getting all of their uniforms correct, spot on. They would have been there on time in their position in order to show respect to their president. So they would have taken a huge amount of care over their appearance and being there and serving the US. And Barack Obama here is really showing his distaste for those men. Now, there's a reason for this, and I want to bring it back in. We put this up yesterday, but Barack Obama, of course, is a student of community activism, and this brings us straight back into Alinsky. And what was Alinsky about? He was about smashing to pieces traditional American society. So you didn't want traditional male-female family units. You didn't want social networks. You didn't want proper communities. He wanted to smash it apart in order to change the whole culture of America. So people shouldn't be surprised. And of course, we also put up yesterday that the Tea Party had now released the letters that show that Hillary Clinton, possibly a new president, has also been in bed with Saul Alinsky's doctrine. So this is the total dismissing, this is total arrogance by Obama against the American people. and captured nicely maybe by Russia Today.
Yeah, well done, Russia Today. So not since 1942 has America declared war, but following the air attack against the US Euro-funded ISIS in Syria last night, Syria is now the 7th country to be bombed by the Nobel Peace Prize winner Barack Obama. Let's remember there was no approval of this attack on Syria. And in this article, which I urge viewers and listeners to go and read, it gives a breakdown of countries targeted and bombed by the US and coalition forces. And that stems from Afghanistan to Somalia.
He's not looking nice in this picture, is he?
Too good. He's gone a bit grey around the edges.
Yeah, but
maybe it's just the news about his wife. Maybe not.
Well,
allegedly.
Allegedly. Well, of course, if we're on the subject of Alinsky, then we've got to come straight back into the Miliband brothers, the Marxist Miliband brothers. The Telegraph here picking up that the top 10 words in Ed Miliband's speech. So in his 1 hour, 6 minute speech at the Labour Party conference, it was dominated by the words people, country and together. He talked about ordinary hard-working people. Well, of course, he's not one of those. He gave repeated examples of those who he had met to support his approach. He was a bit embarrassed when some said they were still undecided about whether to vote Labour. Mr. Miliband accused David Cameron of trying to break up Britain with his pledge for English Home Rule in the wake of the Scottish referendum. So this is just the play politics. Labour, of course, particularly through the office of the Deputy Prime Minister with Mr. Prescott, that was operated as the base for common purpose. And back in those early Blair administration days, that is when we started to see this massive attack on the whole culture of Britain, its society and its history. And if I can just bring, Nick, if you can just bring that one back up, I just wanted to add, so we don't forget, here's the Miliband brothers having a nice little kiss and a hug, Marxist family, and they've already declared in Labour policy that they support Saul Alinsky agenda dedicated to Lucifer. So why are people surprised?
Exactly. He apparently also forgot some of his speech as well. Apology.
Well, he's not very bright, is he?
He's really not,
I think,
no.
I have to say, I think David was a tad brighter, which is why he's been hoovered up by the Americans. That's the brain drain, I think it's called. And we've been left with this one. Well, here we are. I've got to say I'm totally confused now as to who I should be frightened of, who is really an international terrorist and who's not. We're not sure about the videos. 1 minute they're true, they're not. This man's face, I think we've had up before.
This isn't John, though, is it?
No, this is not Jihadi John. But we've now got to be frightened of Khorasan, the Al-Qaeda-linked group that could pose bigger threat to West than ISIL. Now, I'm not too sure anymore who ISIL is. We were never too sure who Al-Qaeda was. Now we've got Khorasan, and where's all the information and the evidence as to who they are? Well, the Telegraph's got it. It says the group's under-the-radar status was obliterated overnight because the Pentagon has accused Khorasan of planning major attacks against the West and said it eliminated the group's militants who were in the final stages of their plots to wreak havoc against Europe or the United States. Why do these people need to wreak havoc against Europe? Because the European Union's doing a fine job at the moment. Okay. And they've said targets are imminent, but is there any evidence of this terrorist threat? None at all.
Then this will be going on for years. That was the last headline I saw before we came down. Expect this to go on for years. So we were warned by George Bush about the war on terrorism being on for many years, and now there is fresh warnings that this will be going on for many, many years.
Keep us focused on
wars. Keep us focused on war. Keep that money rolling in from the profits of war, and keep counting those dead people numbers.
Of course, and we need to glorify it at the same time, so bring in the Raptor. And I thought this was probably one of the most obscene articles I've seen for some time, but the Independent here with a glowing article on the fact that the Americans have unleashed the F-22 against so-called terrorists. Just look at the headline there. The F-22 Raptor made its combat debut in Syria airstrikes this week. So this is a young lady coming out on the town. The fact that it's going to be used to kill, maim people, well, we don't really want to talk about that. It's a combat debut. And the interesting thing is, I think $67 billion equates to roughly £41 billion. But the Americans have only managed to build 188 of these aircraft. So anybody got a calculator and they would like to do the sums, a 188 aircraft equals 41 billion. I think it's about 200 million per aircraft in order to go and kill what are largely going to be innocent men, women, and children in Syria. Go to 21st Century Wire if you would like to read more about what's going on. Patrick Henningsen has done some really good analysis here on what's happening over in Syria. One of the things he's ripping apart is the Americans' claims to have partners in their attacks. Patrick saying quite clearly that there's trouble within the Arab so-called coalition at this stage because they finally realised that these strikes are going to kill some of their own people on the ground.
It's good to see he's better though and back writing again, and be good to have you back in the UK, Patrick, whenever it will be.
Well, we've got to wait a couple of months. So for those of you who don't know, Patrick has been very poorly in America. Probably he's better off in the sunshine of California than he is in the fog, mist and rain of London. Sorry about that if you're in London. But we hope to have him back over here and on the show as soon as we can. Well, a bit of local news. The Herald here, this is the Plymouth Herald, has been crowing that the Royal Navy sailors have been joining their French counterparts at action stations. And Captain Tim Henry, commanding officer of HMS Ocean, said, "Our time operating alongside the French Navy has shown once again how similar our two navies are. From replenishment at sea to anti-air warfare, we operate with a common language." I was a bit puzzled about that. "We operate with a common language and a common understanding of the challenges faced by globally deployed navies. France and Great Britain are defence partners of choice, and it's great that we've been able to operate together this early in HMS Ocean's return to the front line." Well, this is all pretty interesting because, of course, this is the result of the work by the Franco-British Council, which gave rise to a 50-year pact with the French, never debated in Westminster, simply announced by David Cameron. And these are the comments from the French embassy in UK as to what the Lancaster House Agreement was about: the interoperability of aircraft carriers, the production of unmanned aerial vehicles, technology and equipment for the next generation of nuclear submarines, war systems against sea mines, the next generation communications, and it even goes into joint work on nuclear deterrent. So this is the melding together of Britain's armed forces with the French, so that ultimately our armed forces will be under the control of the EU. How was this done? It was set up with the help of the British Council, Franco-British Council, in secret meetings in places such as the ambassador's residence in Paris. No debate in Westminster, shocking, well, but then we do have a king, David, our King Cameron. If we're not frightened of terrorists, I think we should be of Ebola.
We should. We really should be panicking. The World Health Authority are at it again, scaremongering the public, probably to push the vaccine programme. But now they are predicting that 1 million cases of Ebola are expected by January of 2015. So, as I've just said, all we need to wait now is for a big promotion. We know that Bill Gates has already pledged 500 million, I think it is, towards getting the vaccine out to Africa and the countries affected by Ebola. Okay, but a doctor from that area has spoken out, Liberia. His name is Dr. Cyril Broderick, and he is a former professor of plant pathology, and he has written an article for the Liberian Observer claiming that Ebola, along with AIDS, was manufactured by America and that the UN and the World Health Organization have been implicated in enticing African countries to participate and promote vaccinations and healthcare plans. Dr. Broderick then claims that the American military medical industry conducts weapon tests under the guise of vaccinations to get aid over to really, really worth a read of that article, coming straight from a doctor in the affected area. Very interesting.
And here we've got the NHS. We need more staff.
Apparently NHS staff are being targeted to volunteer to go to Africa to help set up medical units. 164 people so far have volunteered. Sally Davis, the UK's medical officer, has said there is an urgent need for infection control specialists and epidemiologists. That right, epidemiologist?
Yeah,
I think that's right. I probably
right,
said it wrong, but hey ho. A 3.2 million grant has been given by the Wellcome Trust to fund clinical trials for vaccines, and they are expected to begin treating patients in 2 months. But we need to see how that little lady got on with, and if she had any side effects after sitting there doing a big photo promotion campaign for.
Can I say something outrageous?
Go on, Brian. Say something
I don't
outrageous.
think there's going to be any side effects, because clearly you've got to be mentally deficient in order to do that in the first place.
And vitamin C, according to
Personal
Dr. Graham
opinion.
Dowing.
I'm going to be in trouble for that.
Yeah, probably.
Well, we're going to end on Robert Greene, 127th day, still under house arrest, still having to report to his local police station every day. Remember that this is an exceptionally dangerous man. Has he murdered anybody? No. Is he an international terrorist? No. Has he raided a bank? No. Has he abused children? No. What has he done? He's campaigned over many years to try and protect children from abusers. And where is he? Under house arrest. Has he? Does he know the charges against him? No. The simple fact is that the Scottish government, under Alex, trust me, Salmon, thinks that this man is so dangerous he needs to stay under house arrest until his trial on charges that Robert still doesn't know in January 2015. If you're international audience, and I know we're picking up people from South Africa, interestingly enough, they're telling us about big problems in health in South Africa. Amazing. And that plans to install a publicly run health system, a sort of equivalent of the NHS, but one that works, is being undermined. I digress. If you're somebody from overseas watching us, then of course the status of a vicious dictatorship doesn't apply in Iraq or Libya or Eastern Europe. You've only got to come to Britain under David, our King Cameron, and, of course, his little number two, David, what's his name?
Miliband.
Nick Clegg, sorry, the anonymous, the grey man who is sort of English, sort of Russian, with a little bit of Dutch and, well, if in doubt, Spanish, I suppose. Okay. So these are the people running the country. The criminals are running the country. We've got innocent people banged up to keep them quiet. It's going to get worse if we don't stop it.
The conference, don't forget, the British Constitution Conference and Drug the Bug Conference are on the weekend of the 1st and 2nd of November. We will all be in attendance with some great speakers and the second day, some great health tips with Dr. Graham Dowing. Remember also, we have the bumper stickers and the new leaflets and obviously the T-shirts. It's Carol at UK Column, Carol with an E at the end, and our Facebook page, UK Column, Melanie Shaw Official Group. And there is the event there to let everybody know about the vigil outside Peterborough Prison. And I will speak to Alex G this afternoon to see what he can do with Peterborough FM to promote that vigil outside for Melanie on Sunday, the 5th of October.
And just a last little suggestion, if you'd like something to do, we now know that every major media outlet in this country has been alerted to the plight of Melanie Shaw. We're still not seeing any articles. Would you and a few friends like to challenge the mainstream press as to why they refuse to cover the case of Melanie Shaw? Okay, thanks very much for joining us. We'll be back same time tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye.